The first day he walked into the lecture hall, the air itself seemed to change. Conversation started mid sentence, pens stopped scratching, and every heartbeat echoed a little louder in that sudden heavy silence. Professor John Jungkook, he wasn't like the other teachers who tried to sound friendly or smile to ease the tension. No, this man walked in with an authority that demanded attention, tall, immaculately dressed in black, sleeves rolled neatly, his gaze as sharp as a blade slashing through air. His jaw was clenched, his expression unreadable, and when he spoke, his voice was deep and calm, yet cold enough to make you straighten in your seat. Good morning, I'm Professor Joan. I'll be teaching you physics. This semester, I expect focus, precision, and respect. Nothing less. Not a single student dared to breathe too loudly. Rumors had already spread long before he arrived that he had once rejected the dean's daughter without blinking, that he never smiled, that he graded with surgical cruelty, and that if he ever caught you slacking, you might as well pack your bags. You thought they were exaggerating until that day. It was just another morning, sunlight filtering through tall windows. The class half asleep as formulas filled the board. You were sitting near the middle row, trying your best to keep up. But the equations blurred. His voice, smooth yet monotone, began to fade into the background like a distant hum. Your mind drifted to lunch, to your aching wrist, to anything but numbers. Then suddenly his voice cut through the room. Miss Vine, you froze. Every head turned toward you and your pen slipped from your fingers. I wonder. He tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing with quiet mockery. Is gravity too weak to keep your attention grounded in this classroom? Laughter erupted around you, sharp and humiliating. Your face burned, your heart thudded painfully in your chest. I was just thinking, I assume, about something far more interesting than Newton's law, no doubt. His lips curved not into a smile, but something colder, something that felt like a smile carved from ice. Please share it with us. I'm sure your thoughts are more enlightening than my lectures. The class laughed again. You clenched your jaw, forcing yourself to look down instead of at his infuriatingly composed face. That was the first time you truly hated someone. From that day onward, his name alone made your blood boil. You started calling him all sorts of things behind his back. The ice statue, emotionless freak, walking headache, and your favorite robot with the superiority complex. But no matter how much you mocked him, he always remained unaffected as if nothing anyone said could ever touch him. He never raised his voice, never lost control, yet somehow managed to humiliate you with just a few calm cutting words, and that only made you hate him more. I swear that man's heart must be refrigerated. He looks at people like they are equations, soulless and meaningless. Your friend laughed, but you didn't because to you it wasn't funny. It was personal. Every day he reminded you of how small he could make you feel with just his calm tone and perfect composure. Every mistake, every missed assignment, every careless answer, he noticed everything, and worst of all, you noticed him too. No matter how much you told yourself you despised him, your eyes always followed him when he moved across the classroom. The way his sleeves rolled up just enough to show his veins as he wrote on the board, or how his slow voice filled the silent, steady, controlled, dangerously magnetic. But you buried those thoughts deep, convincing yourself it was hatred. Hatred for a man who didn't know the meaning of warmth. The corridors were unusually quiet that morning, filled with nervous whispers, the faint shuffle of papers, and the echo of parents' footsteps. You hated days like these. The parent teacher meeting wasn't just about grades, it was about your mother's disapproving sighs and the way her face always fell the moment someone mentioned your lack of focus. You try to convince her not to come, you really did. Mom, seriously, it's just physics. He exaggerates. I'm doing fine. Exaggerates? The man is your professor, mine. If he's calling, it must be serious. Maybe you should stop blaming the teacher and actually listen for once. You bite your tongue the whole way to the classroom, already feeling that storm building in your chest. When you stepped inside there, here was Professor Jungkook, standing near his desk, posture perfect, black shirt tucked and neatly, sleeves rolled to his elbows, calm, composed, deadly professional. He looked up the moment you entered. Miss Wine, his gaze shifted briefly to your mother, offering a polite note. Thank you for coming. It's no trouble at all, Professor. I wanted to know how my daughter is doing. That makes two of us. You flinched. His tone was polite, but it had that subtle, quiet sting he was so good at. He gestured toward the chairs in front of his desk, and both of you sat down. The folder with your name lay open. Papers neatly arranged, your grades staring back like silent witnesses. Wine is a capable student, he began, his voice smooth, measured, but her performance has been inconsistent. She understands the concepts but lacks discipline. She tends to get distracted easily, and he paused, glancing at you briefly. She lets her emotions cloud her reasoning. Your stomach twisted. He could have said it nicely, but no, he had to make it sound like you were some reckless child. Distracted? She turned to you sharply. What is he talking about, Wine? Are you not paying attention in class? Mom, I do. He picks on me for no reason. No reason? His brow lifted slightly. Miss Wine, would you like me to recount how many times you have been caught doodling during lectures? You froze. He remembered that. Or perhaps the time you tried to argue that time dilation was emotionally unrealistic. His lips curved faintly, amusement flickering in his eyes for a brief, dangerous second. Physics, Miss Wine, doesn't depend on emotions, only on facts. Your mother's sigh was loud enough to make you sink lower in your seat. I can't believe this. I rise you better than this, Wine. Is this how you behave in your class? Disrespectful and careless? I'm not careless. He just. Enough. You're embarrassing me right now. The words hit harder than you expected. Especially with him sitting there quiet, cool, and watching you like he was studying your reaction, you blinked back the tears, pretending to form, trying to look anywhere but his eyes. But of course, he noticed, he always did. He said softly, Wine has potential, she just needs direction, a little discipline, perhaps. You are absolutely right, Professor. I'll make sure she focuses from now on. I said, I'm trying, okay? Trying isn't enough, Miss Wine. Results are what matters. That did that. The tears you had been holding in burned in your eyes, but you refused to let them fall in front of him. You know what? Maybe if you treated students like humans instead of machines, they would actually learn something. The room went dead silent. Your mother gasped, horrified. Wine, apologize right now. It's all right. His tone didn't rise, didn't even waver, just that same calm, icy composure. I don't take things personally. She's emotional. That's expected. The way he said it, expected, made it sound like a flaw carved into you, and that was the final straw. You stood up abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. I'm done here. Wine. You didn't turn around. You could feel your eyes on your back as you stormed out of the classroom. Your mother's angry disappointment, his cold indifference. The corridor outside was empty. Only then did you let the first tear fall, wiping it away angrily, humiliation born through you, not just because of your mother's words, but because of his. That calm tone, that look that made you feel small. That way, he never once flinched while tearing your pride apart piece by piece. You took a deep breath, trying to steady yourself, but your chest felt heavy, and before you realized you were walking aimlessly until you reached the quiet garden behind the building. That's where you saw her, a woman, elegant, graceful, standing by the roses with a kind smile. You didn't know then that this stranger was about to change your entire life. The garden behind the building was unusually quiet that afternoon. Sunlight filtered through the tall trees, scattering patterns across the stone path. The faint scent of roses hung in the air, calm, soft, and heartbreakingly opposite to what you were feeling inside. Your heels clicked against the pavement as you paced aimlessly, still trembling with anger. Your mother's words echoed in your mind, but his voice wouldn't stop replaying. That calm, cool tone, that perfect, unbeatable face, that quiet arrogance that made you want to scream. Trying isn't enough. Results are what matter. You scoffed bitterly, wiping your tears with the back of your hand. Who even says that? Does he think he's some kind of robot? You seem upset. The soft voice startled you. You turned, and there she was. A woman, probably in her early 40s, standing near the rose bushes. Her presence was effortlessly elegant, pearl earrings, a cream colored scarf draped neatly around her shoulders, and a smile that could calm even the most restless soul. Roughly, you blinked, hesitant for a second, then nodded stiffly. You could say that. Professor Trouble was. You let out a dry laugh. The man is a nightmare dressed in expensive clothes. The woman tilted her head slightly amused. Oh my, what did he do? You didn't need any more prompting. Everything that had been bottled up since morning spilled out all at once. That rude man, no. That motionless jerk, he thinks he's some kind of god just because he can solve equations. His voice could probably kill plants, and his eyes, you threw your hands up in frustration, colder than winter itself. The woman's soft laugh broke the silence. Not mocking, just genuinely amused, like she was hearing a story she had been waiting for. He sounds interesting. Interesting, he's insufferable. The whole class treats him like some kind of legend, but he's just cold, like emotionally frostbitten cold. You faced in front of her, gesturing wildly as you went on. He talks like he's reading straight from a textbook, never smiles, never laughs. Once he called me out for daydreaming and said gravity wasn't strong enough to hold my attention. Who even says that? Someone creative, perhaps. Creative? You gawked at her. No. Cruel. He humiliated me in front of everyone. And today, her voice wavered. He told my mom I'm emotional and undisciplined, like feelings are some kind of disease. Her eyes softened, that warm, motherly gleam glinting in them. Oh, sweetheart, he must have struck quite a nerve. He didn't. I just. You exhaled sharply, crossing your arms. Okay, maybe he did, but still, he didn't have to say all that in front of my mom. Maybe he believes in being honest. Honest? You frowned? No, he believes in being heartless. The woman chuckled again, shaking her head slightly. You speak with such fire. I like that. Thanks, I guess, though it usually just gets me in trouble. There was a short pause. The wind brushed lightly through the garden, carrying with it the faint sound of students laughing in the distance. You know, she said softly, sometimes people like that, cold, composed, unbending, are the ones who have simply forgotten how to feel. They wear silence like armor. Maybe, but that doesn't give him the right to make others feel small. True, her lips curved into a smile, annoying smile. Still, something tells me he met his match. You blinked confused. His match, you mean me? She smiled warmly. You talk about him with such passion, even your anger sounds alive. That's rare. You laughed awkwardly, rubbing the back of your neck. Trust me, I would rather not talk about him at all. And yet, here you are. Her words left you momentarily speechless. You didn't know what it was about her tone, her calmness, but talking to her felt easy, like she understood more than she let on. You're really kind, you know that? I didn't realize how much I needed someone to just listen. Sometimes listening is the best thing one can do. Well, thank you, miss. Just call me Unhe. Unhe. You repeated her name softly. Thank you, Unhe. Ma'am, you're like a breath of fresh air after a very suffocating class. I'm glad to hear that one. Perhaps this meeting was meant to happen. You nodded, not thinking much of her words. You felt lighter now, like someone had lifted a weight from your chest. As you turned to leave, she watched you go, that same gentle smile still playing on her lips. So, this is the girl who can make him feel again. You didn't hear her, you walked away, believing you had just wanted to a kind stranger, but fate had other plans because the woman you had just poured your heart out to wasn't just anyone, she was Professor Jungkook's stepmother. She had just decided you were perfect for him. It had been 3 days since that meeting. 3 painfully long, restless days you had managed to avoid thinking about him, or at least try to. Every time his name came up, you brushed it off with the scope for an eye roll, pretending his face didn't flash in your mind. But sometimes in the middle of the night, you had catch yourself remembering that look in his eyes, calm, sharp, unreadable. You told yourself you hated him, you had to. That afternoon, you were in your room scrolling through notes when your mother's voice echoed from downstairs. Wine, come to the living room, dear. We have guests. Guests who? Just come quickly and wear something decent. You frowned, slightly irritated. It wasn't unusual for her to surprise you with unannounced visitors, distant relatives. Her friend's potential nice boys she wanted you to meet. Still, something in her tone sounded different. Excited, almost nervous. You sighed, fixed your hair, and walked down the stairs, and then you froze. There, sitting comfortably on the sofa, was him, Professor Jungkook. Immaculate as always, dressed in a black shirt, sleeves rolled neatly, his posture straight, one arm casually resting against the couch. Beside him sat that same elegant woman from the garden, the one who had listened to you vent every ounce of your frustration just days ago. Your steps faltered, the word tilting slightly beneath you. You have got to be kidding me, you muttered under your breath. The woman, Onhe, as she had introduced herself, turned her head and smiled warmly the moment she saw you. Ah, there she is. She rose gracefully and reached out for your hand. So, this is the girl who made my son smile after years. Her son. You blinked, the words echoing in your skull like a thunderclap. Your son? Your voice cracked slightly as you looked between them. Yes, dear. Her smile softened, eyes glowing with genuine fondness. Jungkook. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder. My stepson. You felt your stomach drop to the floor. You turned to him. He was already looking at you, his eyes locked with yours, calm, unreadable as ever. But there it was, just at the corner of his mouth, a faint smudge smirk. The kind that said he knew he had known all along. You have got to be. You stopped trying to form words you knew. That you call me an emotionless jerk. He leaned back slightly, his voice low, teasing, dangerous. Yes, I'm aware. Your mother's confused voice cut through the air. What's going on? Oh, I would say they know each other quite well. In fact, she exchanged a glance with Jungkook. I came here with a proposal. Proposal? Her eyes widened slightly. You turned sharply, completely stunned. Wait, what proposal? A marriage proposal? Silence. The word hit you like cold water. You stared at her, your mouth slightly open, trying to process what you had just heard. Your heartbeat drummed wildly in your chest. You mean with him? You pointed helplessly toward Jungkook. Yes, dear, Jungkook. She smiled like it was the simplest thing in the world. He's not very expressive, but when I mentioned you, his reaction said everything. Your gaze started to him again, searching for any hint of denial, surprise, anything, but he sat there perfectly calm, one brow slightly raised as if this entire thing amused him. She's exaggerating. His tone was dry, but there was something dangerous in his eyes. Am I? She looked at him knowingly, then back at you. He didn't stop me from coming here, did he? Professor Joan, are you serious about this? I don't do anything I'm not serious about. The firmness in his voice sent a chill down your spine. He wasn't joking. He wasn't denying it. He swallowed hard, stepping back slightly. This is insane. We're not. I mean, he's my professor. Not for long, dear. The semester ends soon. She chuckled softly. Besides, I have never seen him take interest in anyone before. He should be flattered. You stared at her in disbelief, then back at him. Interest, you humiliate me, insult me, and now what? You want to marry me? You shouldn't speak so carelessly, Miss Wine. He rose from the couch, his height towering over you, his presence commanding the room like gravity itself. Words have consequences. You glared up at him, fury burning beneath your shock. You are unbelievable. He said that before, his lips curved slightly right after calling me a walking headache, if I remember correctly. You now, she interrupted lightly, smiling as she took your mother's hand. Let's not fight on such a lovely day, Mrs. Y. I truly think your daughter and my son would suit each other. Opposites attract, don't they? Your mother looked torn, flustered, but flattered. Meanwhile, you stood there in tense silence. Your pulse racing, your mind spinning with disbelief. This can be happening, you whispered half to yourself. Jungkook leaned closer, his voice barely above a murmur, only for you to hear. You really should be more careful about who you badmouth, Miss Wine. A faint smile ghosted his lips. You never know who's listening. And with that, he turned slightly, giving you one last unreadable look before sitting back down beside his stepmother, perfectly composed like he hadn't just turned your entire world upside down. You stood frozen, your heart still pounding, your breath shallow, every nerve in your body alive with shock and anger, and something else you didn't dare name. Because the worst part wasn't that he was here or that he knew what you had said, it was the way his eyes lingered on you, not with mockery, but with quiet possession. And deep down, you knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The air in the living room felt heavier than before, as if time itself had slowed, holding its breath between belief and faith. Your mother and Onhe were still talking, their voices distant, muffled by the storm in your head. But all you could focus on was him. Jungkook sat there, one leg crossed over the other, his fingers resting against his chin, his gaze calm, dark, and bothered flickered briefly toward you. And then he spoke. I accept. The words dropped into the silence like thunder. On his face lit up, your mother gasped, but your heart stopped. What? Your voice trembled, disbelief curling through it. You accept? You are agreeing to marry me? He rose slowly from the sofa, his presence overwhelming, his every movement precise and deliberate, like a man who had already measured the weight of every consequence before speaking. Yes, he slipped his hand into his pockets, stepping closer until the distance between you thinned to a breath. I accept the proposal. He took a step back, words stumbling out. You can't be serious. Do I look like the kind of man who jokes Miss Vine? You froze. His tone was calm, but beneath that composure, there was something else, something darker. Why? Your voice cracked. You don't even like me. You humiliate me. You call me emotional, undisciplined. And yet he interrupted softly, almost like a whisper against your skin. You're the only one who ever dared to speak to me like that. The words hung between you, heavy and dangerous. Your breath hissed. For the first time, you saw something flicker in his eyes, not warmth, not kindness, but something broken and buried, like ashes of a fire that once burned too bright. What happened to you? You asked quietly, why are you like this? He looked at you for a long moment as if deciding whether the truth was worth the effort. Feelings are unpredictable. His gaze dropped for a second, voice lower now. They make you careless, they make you weak. I learned that once. From who? Someone who promised not to leave. A shadow passed through his expression, and it anyway. You didn't speak, you couldn't. For a moment, the cold, emotionless professor didn't look untouchable. He looked haunted, but just as quickly, the masks returned, smooth, perfect, untouchable once more. Whatever you think of me, Miss Fine, remember this: I don't believe in love. This isn't about that. Then what is it about? He stepped closer again, close enough for you to feel his steady breath, cold, precise, and yet strangely intimate. It's about keeping your word. His voice dropped to a whisper and dangerous, and you should have known better than to speak mind carelessly. What does that even mean? He leaned down slightly, his lips barely an inch from your ear, his tone calm, almost poetic, but sharp enough to cut through your pulse. I warned you once, Miss Wine, words have consequences. A shiver ran down your spine. His voice was neither cruel nor tender, it was a quiet promise wrapped in ice. You met his eyes again, and this time you couldn't read him at all. Was it revenge, curiosity, or something deeper he didn't yet understand himself? He straightened, buttoned his scarf calmly, and turned to his stepmother. We will proceed with the engagement. Then, glancing at you one last time, she learned soon enough. You stood frozen, breathed unsteady, eyes wide, your heart a trembling mess of fear, anger, and something dangerously close to fascination. Because deep down, even through the chaos and disbelief, one truth settled in your chest. You hadn't just crossed paths with him, you had awakened something he thought was long dead, and he wasn't going to let you forget it.